Hi everyone, Savannah here, and today's sketch is a dreamy Parisian view. This is inspired by the summer I Turned Pretty. We'll keep the shapes simple and add a soft golden light for that perfect romantic mood. Everything you need to follow along is linked in that description down below. That's including the free brush set, a color palette, as well as the outline. Let's go ahead and jump right in. The first thing I always like to do is change that background, so go to layer, select background color, and in the palette section, we're going to scroll up until you find that Parisian window color palette and click that cyan blue color. Then go ahead and create a new layer, bring it below the outline layer, and we're going to add some clouds. So grab that circle blend brush, grab this, it's a reddish grayish orange color, and we're going to add some really pretty clouds here. Now the circle blend brush is pressure sensitive, so as you can see I pressed harder and I'm adding more of that pigment there, but as I go further away from that pigment I'm pressing lighter and you're still seeing a lot of that blue coming through. It is pressure sensitive, so the lighter you press, the less that color that you have selected is going to go through. The harder you press, the more that color. So just keep that in mind as you're using the circle blend brush, or if you want to use a square blend brush, those are both pressure sensitive brushes. But we're going to just be adding in these fluffy clouds here into the sky. I'll go back over with some blue to have more pops of blue poking through these clouds, but let's go ahead and start building up this section. Now let's go ahead and add a new layer. We're going to grab this pink red color and we're going to use that for the furthest away buildings here. Now we're going to keep these pretty simplistic in shape. We're not going to add a lot of details. I'll show you what I do here for the buildings, but again, we don't want to add too many details. I'm going to keep this simple, but for now, let's go ahead and add in this color here for this further strip here at the top. Now go ahead and create a new layer, grab that cyan blue, that darker cyan blue color, and we're going to do the same thing but with that section right below it here. And now grab that lighter cyan blue that's right next to that dark version of it, the circle blend brush, and we're going to just go over this section we just added with some horizontal and vertical lines to give the illusion that there are buildings here. And now we're going to do the same thing with that grayish pink red color, but on that layer we did before. We're just going to do some horizontal and vertical lines here as well, again, to give that illusion that there might be buildings here. And now grab the orange color and we're going to add just a few spots here and there on this blue and reddish pink area, just to look like there's a little bit of reflection, maybe glass is reflecting off this light. So I'm just adding a little bit mostly at the top of these layers where the sun would be hitting, but I'll bring it down a little bit in the buildings as well, but we're going to do that on both layers with that same color. And now once you're done with this, we're going to create a new layer and we're going to fill in the shape of the Eiffel Tower. This layer is technically going to be between those two layers that we just completed, so between that pinkish layer and that blue layer. But I'm going to use the dark magenta color for the Eiffel Tower and I'm just going to trace and fill in the shapes here with the circle brush. Now, the majority of the Eiffel Tower, there's a lot of like pass through areas that you'll see, right? And so right now I'm just going to fill in most of the shapes. I'm going to just do the lines here. And then what I do for the Eiffel Tower sections that have that pass through area, I just do kind of X's, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. But for now, I'm just kind of tracing and doing the Eiffel Tower here first. And then as we progress through the video, we'll add a few highlights to it, because again, I'm thinking as the sun's coming from the left here, up kind of in the sky, I want to have some of that reflectiveness on the Eiffel Tower. And now once you have these areas filled in, go ahead and turn that outline layer off, and I'll show you what I do here for these sections here. I just draw X's. They don't have to be perfect. Again, you're giving the illusion that this is the Eiffel Tower. It doesn't have to be exact. If we were doing an exact drawing of the Eiffel Tower, we would want to be more perfect with this, but we're just giving the illusion that this is the Eiffel Tower. Whoever sees this, they're going to know that that's the Eiffel Tower that you're drawing. So just do these kind of X kind of shapes, and then we'll move on. We have the window to do. We have a letter here. So again, this is inspired by Summer I Turned Pretty. So we're going to do a letter from Conrad on the windowsill here, and then we have these flowy kind of curtains that we'll add as well. So on a new layer above all of these other layers that we just created, but still below the outline layer, we're going to grab that red-orange color, and we're going to trace around the window with the circle brush, and then we're going to fill in the rest of it with this color. Now I'm keeping all of the window and the wall and everything like that on one layer, because it's going to be really easy to add those details because there's not too many complex shapes here. So we're just going to do that all on the same layer, and then we'll do a new layer for the letter, and we'll do a new layer for the curtain as well. Now go ahead and create a new layer, and we're going to do the letter. So I'm doing it in an orange, and I'm just going to trace and fill it in. We will add details to it in a little bit, but for now we're just blocking in the shape. And one thing I might not have mentioned is that I do tend to like to turn off the outline layer as I'm filling in the shapes. It just helps me see if the shape is how I want it to be, if I want to tweak the shape, because when we start adding details, we set it to alpha lock, and essentially what alpha lock does is when you add in details, it doesn't go outside the line. So for instance, this letter, we're blocking in the shape. So if I added any details on top, let's say I went towards the edge of the letter there, it won't go outside of those lines. And so that's why it's really important to make sure that you have these base layers down with the shape that you want, because as you're adding in those details, you might want to tweak something, and it's going to be harder to do that if you're doing it all on the same layer as a alpha lock. Now let's create a new layer, and we're going to be doing the curtain here. So go ahead and put that new layer above the letter layer, and we're going to do a blue curtain. So you can pick any color that you want. I'm going to do this really dark cyan blue color. I'm using this circle blend brush because I want these curtains to be very airy. And I did decide to do two curtains. So in the drawing, I only did the one on the left. I ended up just duplicating it and moving it to the right, so you can see the overlay image on the bottom left there. There's two curtains. It's just copying this one on the left that I've done and moving it over. And to get that airy texture, that's why we're using that circle blend brush, because it does pull in a lot of the pigment behind, because it's pressure sensitive. So the lighter you press, the more that background color is going to be coming in. the harder you press, the less you'll see that. So you'll see that I'm kind of alternating a little bit, especially towards the edge of the curtain. I'm doing harder presses, and then towards the centers, I'm just kind of doing these light, airy brush strokes. I'm also changing the brush size for areas. So I want, for instance, I'm adding in this lighter color. I want more of that in the image, and I want to blend it out a little bit more. So I'm doing a wider brush. Whereas if I want to show kind of like the billows of that curtain, I'll do maybe a smaller brush for that, just to show where the shadow and highlights are. So for now, I'm just using a slightly bigger brush. I'm pulling in some of this creamy color because it was getting a little too blue for me, and I wanted to soften it with this creamy color. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I am going to pull in that lighter cyan blue color that we've used on the buildings in the background there, just to soften this up and blend these two colors together. Now let's go ahead and jump to that window layer, and we're going to start adding in another side here. So it was looking a little too plain on the left side, so I just added another red-orange section there. And then I'm going to set everything to alpha lock, because what this will do is we can add details. Like I mentioned earlier, any details that we add is not going to go outside those lines. This will come especially in handy with the Eiffel Tower, where there's all those lines and there's a lot of those kind of see-through sections. When you add in details over top, it's going to stay within those, and you'll see what I mean here in a little bit. And now grabbing that light yellow orange color, we're going to be using the circle blend brush and adding some highlights to the window from where that sun's kind of peeking in here from the outside. So on the inner part here, that's kind of facing out towards the outside like light area, so I'm going to add some there. At the bottom of the window here as well, I'm going to add some light, and then I'll just kind of touch up the corners here, but we're not doing anything super complex, just super simple straight lines, just to give it that look that there's this glow, this light bouncing off of this window here. And now I'm going to use this color of the window. So to grab that color, you can either go to the color palettes or hold your finger down on that color. But I'm going to end up going to disc, grabbing a slightly darker version of that. And I'm just adding a little bit to the left side to bring down that tone. So it's not just one color. I want to give it some dimension, and it's very easy to do that with highlights and shadows. So I'm grabbing that darker color. I'm adding some shadows to this window area. So I'm adding it along the bottom here, kind of where the window would have a little bit of a shadow, and I'll add some to the right. But I ended up, like I mentioned, adding the curtain to the right side because I felt like this was just a very big orange eyesore, and I didn't want your eye to be drawn to that. I wanted your eye to be drawn to the Eiffel Tower and the window and looking out that window. So that's why I duplicated the curtain on the left side and moved it over to the right. And then of course I like to build up my layers, so I added a little too much of that shadow on the bottom, so I just grabbed the original color and just kind of brought that up a little bit. Same with on the side here, it was going too far, which it will get covered a little bit with the curtain, but there will be a little bit of pass through there, so I'm just lightening this up a little bit. And now let's go ahead and grab this dark blue color. I'm actually going to make the wall this dark blue. So essentially anything that's in the shadow is going to have more of a blue tint. It's a little bit more cool. Anything in the light is going to be more warm tone. So I'm doing blue for the wall here, and then I'm going to grab another blue, slightly lighter blue to do at the kind of, if you're standing looking out the window, that edge closest to you, it's going to be a lighter blue, but it's still going to be blue because it's in the shadow. It's not getting hit by that sunlight. So I'm just going to add that as well here. Again, we're doing very simple shapes. They're just straight lines essentially across the areas here. And now I'm going to duplicate the curtain here in a second. So to do that, just go to the layer that the curtain's on, swipe left, and then there's going to be an option to say duplicate layer. Click the pointer, and at the bottom it says uniform, click flip horizontal, and then you can move it over. And that's the easiest way to copy something like curtains if you want them to look the same. Now, if you don't want them to be as identical as they are here, you can definitely do that same technique we did for the curtain on the left and just do the same thing on the right side. It will be unique, it will look different, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to duplicate it. Now on that letter layer, we're going to grab that dark color again. And with the other video that I showed you already for the Summer I Turned Pretty series, I just did the scribble line. So that's what I'm doing here. Now the difference is this letter is folded over. So I want to add a little bit of shadow. So I did a little bit of the lettering up above. Then I grabbed this orange color, the circle blend brush, and I'm just adding a little bit of darker color at the bottom here to show that it's a little bit of a shadow from that letter being folded up. And then I'll continue on with that dark magenta lettering here and then sign it off as Love Conrad or Love C. And now we want to work on the Eiffel Tower. So go to the Eiffel Tower layer. We're going to grab the orange color here and we're going to start adding in some lighter color. And again, the light source is coming from my left, so I'm going to add it to the left. I'm using that circle blend brush so that I can control how much of that color I want across the surface of this Eiffel Tower. So more on the left side, I'm going to add that orange. A little bit more in the middle, I'll add it. So I'm going a little bit softer towards the middle, but on that left side, I'm going a little bit more heavy-handed because that's where that light's hitting. And because we set this to alpha lock, all of these details that you're adding in are staying confined to the shape that we already outlined for this Eiffel Tower. So that's really helpful to have that. It's not going outside the lines. It's blending in really nicely here. But you can definitely go over with the dark magenta color if you're going over too far like I did here. So I'm just going to back off that color a little bit because I don't want it to look like it's just a completely orange Eiffel Tower. I still want it to have some darker tones to it as well. So that's what I'm kind of going through back over with it. But again, because it's set to alpha lock, all these updates, all these changes you're doing are going to be confined to that shape. Then what I'm going to do is just add an even lighter color here to the side to really hone in that there is this shine, this glow that's hitting the Eiffel Tower. And there we have our Parisian view. Thank you so much for sketching along with me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also leave a comment what your favorite part of the season was of The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'll see everybody in the next sketch.